Hi, I'm Rachel Olson, founder of Best Mom Products, where mompreneurs share their adventures in business. Today I'm talking with Janice Taylor, the CEO of Just Be Friends. Just Be Friends Kids provides online creative social environments to help children under the age of 13 and their parents combat the growing epidemic of unhealthy social behaviors among children through direct parental involvement, creative social games, and the Just Be Friends new friend finder. Today, Janice will share her story with us of being raised by a single mother in poverty, getting recognized by and touring with Oprah Winfrey, and what she's learned about recruiting an executive team and raising capital in Silicon Valley. Thanks, Janice. It's great to have you. You've been doing this for about 2 years, is that right?
I thought of the idea 2 years ago and originally launched Just Be Friends for women to meet other women for friendship and to really provide a healthy space for them to get back at the interests that really made them unique and what they loved about themselves. And so I thought of the idea and really plugged away with that. And of course, 6 weeks after I launched, went to the Oprah show. And so that really changed everything about it. And I met women from really all over Canada and the United States, and they just provided such great feedback. Most of the feedback was, why aren't you doing this for kids?
Launched, and 6 weeks later you're on Oprah. Can you tell us, for the mom entrepreneur out there who says, wow, I would love the exposure of something like that, how exactly did you get on her show? What steps did you take to reach out, or did they reach out to you?
I'd always knew that I would go to Oprah. I had this very, sort of instinct that I would end up going, and I know everybody says that. But that year, actually in January, I said to my mom, I'm going to the Oprah show. And in August of that year, I was so exhausted. I had just launched Just Be Friends. I was answering all these emails, and I pulled open my laptop and it said, are you an ultimate viewer? And I'm like, that's me. I am an ultimate viewer. So literally at midnight on a Monday night, I wrote to her about my life story, where I'd come from, and what I really wanted to do for women and for kids. And I just sent them a letter. And by Thursday of that week, so 3 days later, my phone rang and it said Chicago area code. And I was in the car with my best friend Mona, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the Oprah show, I know. And she's like, well, answer the phone. So I clicked it open, and it was Sarah Ruth, the producer of the Oprah show, loving our story. So that's sort of how it happened.
Wow. Okay, so then you went on the Oprah show and you got a lot of exposure. What exactly did that do for your business? And I know then you traveled with her all over the world. Is that right? Or to Australia?
We were all chosen. There was 150 ultimate viewers, and our partners chosen, or we could take one person with us that Oprah felt represented her years on the show, and that we were her ultimate viewers. So that was the season premiere when John Travolta came out, and she's like, and we're going to Australia. And so that December, I then went to Australia with Oprah. And it was really just more of the exposure that the place that I came from was in a rural sort of part of Canada, and just plucked out of my universe. And so there was a lot of interest around who I was and what we were doing.
What did that translate for you for business? Like the number of subscribers, how does your business model work? People sign up they register for your service?
Time actually for the women, it was a free model, and that worked well in that case. What it did do was it just drew a lot of attention outside of my region, and women just came from all different parts of the country and the world. And so that really brought a lot of attention. In terms of the business, it was the reason why I ended up pivoting fully towards kids, which now towards kids, it's a subscription model, and that's to keep no advertising out, that parents can really have that safety and that security. And that business model makes sense to me. But it was the women that hit the site that ultimately made me go, okay, I need to be doing this for kids, and how does this look? With about 32,000 uniques a day.
Wow.
So that was sort of my average. Of those women, I captured a very active, about 5,000 of them that were active every day, really exchanging the friendship. But about 3 months after I launched, I actually went offline because I had to redo the site completely, and I wasn't prepared for 32,000 uniques a day, and I wasn't prepared for what Oprah had brought, and so I really had to redo the site.
Okay, so that's interesting. So you went offline, and at this time, did you know that you were going to be changing it to a kid's site, or were you still focused on a women's site?
I was just really focused on the women's site, but they were very specific. Like the women that came to the site, they said, you didn't consider my stage of my life, or you didn't consider my education, and I want to be matched more on my interest and not my marital status. So there was just things like that in refining the algorithm that really required the site to be redone. And so that's why it went offline. And then I didn't decide to do children until really February of this year.
February of 2012, so everyone has a good sense of this. And so when you decided to do children and you were getting this feedback, what was the turning point that you decided, was it just the feedback? How did you decide children is where you wanted to put your effort?
I was in Canada, and I'd come to the United States, to San Francisco for the first time in February, to the Women 2.0 conference, again, really promoting the women. And the women that I met there were smart, really, really aggressive, really focused. And they just hit me. Each one I met were like, why aren't you doing this for kids? And nobody's in this space. And you need to be in this space. And your message is so for kids. So it was Valentine's Day. And I was driving home depressed going, no, it can't be. I've got to change my whole focus. But it really, that was the turning point. Meeting the women here in the United States and going to that event in San Francisco was the final sort of straw. And so then I went home and said, okay, what am I going to do now?
For the person who hasn't heard your story, you grew up, you were saying, with a single mom in poverty in Canada, and you built a very successful business in real estate for yourself. And if you could talk a little bit about your evolution.
Growing up to a single mom, and it was 1981 when my parents were split, and I was 6 years old. And, a lot of women at that time really rejected her because it wasn't as common. And even though my dad had made the decision to leave and really left my mom high and dry with 3 girls to take care of, she was rejected by the community for a little while. And then as I started to get a peer group, I really, the moms in that village, I call it the village, in that community really became the women that I looked to. My mother was working, trying to, work 3 jobs. All her effort was on survival. And that's often the times when you are in poverty, all you can think about is, how am I going to pay these bills? And I was very acutely aware of the struggles of being a single mom. But it also made me very resilient. And it made me think about how these other women just really stepped in, and so it was from that sort of those initial upbringing that really brought me to this point. And then in my 30s, all of a sudden I was single, and my marriage was over, and I was rejected by the women that I had spent the last 12 years with. And I started to go, okay, well, how far have we really come? Here my mother was in 1981, and now this is 2009, and I'm getting the same treatment. How is this happening? And I really started to think about how all of this was going to impact our kids. And I'm a mother of 2 little girls, and I thought, what's going to happen to them? If we continue this, how are they behaving? And then I started to really look at, well, how are they behaving? And my background's in psychology, and that was my education, and I did my honors thesis on women and self-esteem to really understand where we get our self-worth from and our self-esteem from. And I now noticed, that there was this massive influx of bullying. And it's always been there. The behaviors have always been there. But it's the weapons that we can use now, even as adult women, towards each other, that really are having this breakdown in community and this breakdown in the village. And it really does take a village to raise our children. And then the village can't exist in the same way it did for you and I. How can we recreate that in the digital virtual world? And it really, those experiences all led me to this sort of idea of, what if we could bring the village back? And what if, can you imagine if we as women just looked at each other and said, at the end of the day, let's just be friends. We may not agree, we may not have the same political views, we may not have the same religion, we may not even agree on whether you should like meat or not like meat. But at the end of the day, isn't it more important that our children understand that every woman has a story and every person has a story? And so we should just, at the end of the day, just be friends and teach that basic premise, that basic foundation. And so those experiences really led me to this idea.
Let's talk a little bit about you came to Silicon Valley from Canada. Yay.
Okay.
And let's talk a little bit about your experience. You're here to, create an executive team, which I think you said you had somebody, a marketing person from Yahoo, was it?
She was from HP.
HP, okay. And then and then a developer as well.
I found a developer, and it's sort of the way things go. You find one, they leave. It's an evolving process here, as I've learned in Silicon Valley. Nothing really sticks too long, but it's been a process, that's for sure.
Okay, so can you tell me a little bit about that? Why you moved down here to basically find your executive team and raise capital and officially launch the kids portion of Just Be Friends?
So I was chosen out of Canada. Canada has, our Canadian Consulate General had a program called Tech Women Canada, and they chose 12 women, and I was one of those 12 women to be mentored in Silicon Valley. So we had the opportunity to have an office here for free, and they gave you a one-on-one mentor, which was my director of marketing from Hewlett-Packard, Mary Camerata, just a really great woman. And so we were here to really learn the ropes, understand how things are made here, which is very different, as you probably know, than anywhere else in the world. So I've spent the last 3 months just really understanding the culture. Even though we share the borders, there's a lot of differences in our culture, and really understanding how things get made, how things are produced, how you can develop a team, and really have found my way through this sort of minefield.
What did your mentor have to say to you that has, what piece of advice would you share with everyone that maybe your mentor provided?
My mentor had some really interesting perspectives. She really focused on the opportunity, and she really was the yin to my yang. And I think that there is, for one thing I would like people to know is that Silicon Valley is all but one path to your success. There is several paths to your success, and you will change courses. And the most important lesson I think that anybody should take, and it's the lesson I took even when I was building my real estate portfolio and developing that business, is that you have to have people on your bus. And there's a golden rule that if the people on your bus don't really understand your idea, not your business model, not any of that, your passion, your vision, they need to get off your bus. And you need to load your bus with people that really understand that vision. And I think that sometimes we come to Silicon Valley, it's almost like the Hollywood stars come and they think, oh, well, as soon as I get to Hollywood, I'm going to be a movie star. And you think as soon as you get to Silicon Valley, you're going to be a tech star. And that's just not the case. And I think there's a pool of information here. Things happen very quickly. It's a wonderful experience, but it isn't the be-all and the end-all. And again, if you cannot find people in the Silicon Valley that don't understand your vision, go to the place that you can find that they understand what you're trying to make.
Thank you for sharing that. So it's definitely important to have people on your side who understand what you're doing in order to move forward and achieve what you want to achieve. How have you found that in recruiting people for an executive team? And are you here to raise money as well? Is that your goal?
It's funny. Just as of last week, I've had some really great news. For the parents out there, they may know Club Penguin. They may be familiar with Club Penguin. Well, Club Penguin's actually Canadian and originated in a place called Kelowna, BC, which is what we call the Valley to the North. And last week I went there just to meet them, meet the founders. Disney's set up shop in Kelowna. They have a massive infrastructure of gaming around children's network and children's animation. So I've been accepted into a position there, into the accelerator in the Okanagan, to be mentored and to be supported by that community that built the last successful children's network. Now, had I never come here, I probably would never have ended up there. And so it's kind of weird. Like, I came here thinking that that's where I was going to find my team, only to find it in the Valley to the North.
Wow.
And one of a really high level venture capitalist in Silicon Valley, a wonderful woman, Catherine, she said, Janice, that's where you should be. That's strategic and smart. Come back to us when you're going to raise some money, and we hopefully can at that point. But so that's where my story takes me. But I had never would have got connected to them had I never come here first. So you just never know where your journey's going to take you.
The accelerator program basically just makes your business, do you want to explain, makes it move a lot faster. They give you the resources and all of that and guidance.
once you sort of get your initial idea, there's really important for you to get past sort of the business planning portion, and accelerators get you past, okay, now I got a business plan, so now what? They really put those things into action. So accelerators, just think of an accelerator as your rocket fuel and your actionable items. So you've thought about your idea, you've planned it out, you've typed away, now you go to an accelerator and they really help you with the resources and put that into place. And that is really seems to be the new way in the Valley as well. There's a lot of accelerators popping up, less, emphasis on sort of that initial seed angel round, and they seem to be saying, get into an accelerator, get your company going, and then you're going to see the funding opportunities happen. And they really understand that model well here in the Valley.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So what does that mean for you? Are you packing up now and moving there?
I am, actually.
Oh my God!
Yeah, I'm packing up as of Friday. I'm in San Francisco right now, and it's literally that quick, but you sort of have to be flexible. And this is such a great opportunity with a really supported group of a community all around the children's space. I'm going to learn so much from them, and then I'm going to come back. So I still plan to launch the children's portion here, but I'm going to make the product in that accelerator and then still launch the product here. I still feel that this is the best place in terms of the nucleus and the understanding and the uptake and the adoption. And like you said, there's a lot of passionate women out in the United States and in Canada and passionate mothers. And I think that this is still a really great place to market the product.
How long is the accelerator program?
Well, we have a Canadian time frame, so when we say that, we're not usually a hard stop. My personal mission is to have the beta up by January, and then I'll come back. I have some interactions with some schools in Silicon Valley, some elementary schools and some PTA groups, so we'll get them to start testing the product hopefully in January.
That is so wonderful. Congratulations. Oh
yeah.
My gosh, look at all that's happened since I met you just like a few months ago.
I know. It's really interesting. I think that the best advice I can give any woman that's thinking about this line of work is just to remain open. Because had I never accepted that invitation to Kelowna and just was like, no, it's got to be made in Silicon Valley, I would have missed a great opportunity. And my mother always says, when one door closes, another one opens. But I think that this door never closed. But, if you're going to make a product, align yourself with the people that have already made it, and that's really the most important thing. Learn from them, be a sponge, and really be open to it.
Thank you for sharing your story and yes, all the twists and turns.
I know, and we have to keep in touch because I love that you're doing this and really giving a voice to other female entrepreneurs. It's really, really important. So the mission that you're now providing and what you're doing for other women is so important because we need to stick together. We need to support each other, and we need to share our knowledge just like we share where we bought our lipstick from, or where we got our shoes from. And we need to do that in the same light.
No, I agree, and I thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you also, I know you've made an introduction. I need to check my email for another woman, and so I'm always open to that. I always love hearing people's stories. That's why I do it. I'm always inspired by women like you.
Leave this open for your viewers as well. Please share my contact information.
Great.
If anybody wants my email, send me an email if you have questions, if you have anything that you may need. Please, email me. I'm the best person in the world for that. I will email you back. So
that is awesome. Okay, do you want to tell people your email address?
Yeah. So it's Just Be Friends Network. So just all as it sounds, justbefriendsnetwork@gmail.com.
Great.
Send me an email. Ask me your questions. If I know somebody, I can introduce you. I can really, really help you. So just by all means do that. So justbefriendsnetwork@gmail.com.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.